All right, so good day. This is Real Talk today.
Oh yeah.
Gonna do it again.
Yesterday we were talking about close-ups.
Yesterday?
Yeah.
Last video.
Yeah, we were talking about close-ups.
Yeah.
So I
been a
thought
while.
today we should talk about wide shots.
Why?
Why wide shots? I think that's what I'm gonna name it. What is a wide shot?
It's a very wide shot.
Oh gosh.
Shows a lot of stuff in it. Got the camera back. It's like here, you see all the stuff. You're like, wow, that's an interesting place. And you should think like, I get it. I know where I am.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like it establishes kind of where you are.
Well, why don't you talk about use it? I mean, because with the
know,
close-ups we talked about the uses and
Yeah.
when you use it and stuff. So tell me a little bit about like the typical uses for it, because I'm glad you said establishing shot.
Yeah,
There
I
are
guess
other uses.
I don't know. That's a good question. Is a wide shot and establishing shot different? And I would say yes, they are.
Ah,
Right.
there we go.
You can go to a wide shot after you've established your scene.
Right.
Right.
Now we're getting into the meat of it.
Yeah. but an establishing shot is a wide shot.
Mm-hmm.
Shit. I mean, sometimes. Sorry, I didn't mean to swear.
Well,
I mean, is an establishing shot always a wide shot? Ooh, this is Real Talk. Tomorrow we'll talk about. Okay, what is an establishing shot? Let's just stick to wide shot for today. So what is a wide shot? A wide shot is exactly what it says. It shows a lot of wide information. I don't know.
beautiful.
I mean, so how to shoot a wide shot, right? You can shoot a wide shot on a super wide lens. You could shoot it on a 10 millimeter lens. So your field of view is everything.
Mm-hmm.
You could shoot it on an extremely telephoto lens, but
Right.
back the camera up a mile. So you still have a relatively wide field of view, but it's all compressed on top of each other. So it looks like, someone's walking through the scene or across the desert. Doesn't look like they really moved that far, but in reality, they walked a really long time.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of techniques. A wide shot it isn't so much about the focal length or the lens you use. It's about your framing.
Yeah.
And what information is present in the frame. I really love it when a wide shot, when one shot either transforms into the other. So it goes from a wide shot to a close-up, and the camera doesn't necessarily move. I love that.
Okay.
Or vice versa. So, so if you start on a wide shot, you can go to a close-up by having someone enter the frame, and now you moved from this wide establishing shot or exterior shot, and now someone steps into the foreground. If you have a long depth of field, they come into focus, and now you have, or if you use a split diopter and you split your focus field, you can have a really dynamic shot.
Right.
You saw this a lot. In Leone films.
Oh yeah.
You saw this a lot in Kurosawa films. You saw this a lot in Orson Welles films. I mean, any like noir. If you think of a noir, you see that a lot, where they use infinity focus. They put everything in infinity focus, which at the time required a ridiculous amount of light.
Yeah.
To have their lenses closed down to give them that much depth. And and then
which is easier to do in westerns when you're outside. And
when you're outside, and you have the
sun.
power of the sun blasting you.
Yeah.
Unless you need that foreground subject to be in perfect exposure.
Right.
And then a lot of times matching a foreground object, especially with a hat on, was really difficult. And this is getting into lighting theory. So.
Has to do with it.
Well, sure. So, like, if you're in a desert and you're shooting an extreme wide shot that you're closing down to a close-up because your character walks into frame, and they have a brimmed hat on, and the sun's over here keying down on them, they're going to have shadows from the brim of that hat.
Right.
So then they would need to bring in a light strong enough to balance out that foreground object or that foreground subject with the background. And sometimes that would require like a 20K Mole Richardson. Just
sure.
It'll give you a sunburn. The thing
right.
is so bright, So there's a lot of interesting lighting theory when it comes to a wide shot. Lighting is an interesting thing on a wide shot. How do you light a wide shot?
Yeah.
I think Django did a really good job of establishing wide shots and how you light wide shots. Actually, I think both Leonardo DiCaprio films, or both had Leonardo DiCaprio in them, but Django and The Revenant, I think they took two different dramatic approaches to wide shots. So like Django, the clan chase on horseback, they lit that with with like sky domes or skylights or whatever they're called, dome lights. I don't forget what they're called, but
did they? I didn't,
yeah,
I don't
essentially
know.
they put this huge, massive soft light over top of a field on a crane, and just put out the production stills are pretty cool, but they just put out a massive amounts of soft light over top of the subject, so it looked like moonlight coming down on them. And that's how they shot it. Whereas like The Revenant took the other approach, and it was all natural light.
Right.
And they used the technology of the camera and the skill set of the techniques and the skill set of the cinematographer to light the scenes in a way that you had these dramatic landscape shots and dramatic wide shots communicating essentially the vast emptiness of the world. And it was all lit. Like the only light in one of the shots was like just a fire.
When you were talking about the vastness of, in The Revenant, I think the wide shot can also be extremely well utilized to communicate like isolation or, someone being very small in a moment,
Right.
like wrap out a scene, and it really helps communicate like, oh yeah, like we're showing just this vast amount of information of something around this character who's framed very tiny.
Yeah,
and
I think
you can communicate, a lot of emotions through that type of setup.
I think especially when you juxtapose the wide shot with close-ups or extreme close-ups.
Right.
I think Jaws did it really well, showing the alone nature of being in the ocean.
Sure.
And then now we're close up on the boat and we're trapped on this boat.
Right.
It's like...
Well, because juxtaposing the wide shot and the close-up, you can very quickly go from like open, kind of letting the audience breathe, to this very claustrophobic, like...
Or even not letting the audience breathe in a lot of situations. I think wide shots a lot of times do communicate the drama or the angst and anxiety of a film.
They can, for sure.
Yeah, and I think when you're thinking about your wide shots, you need to be thinking in terms of this.
Right.
So, like, wide shots. What's a wide shot? Like, okay, a film I just watched was Casino, and there's a wide shot at the end of the sequence when he, like, stabs the dude in the neck with the pen. And you just wonder to yourself, why did Scorsese choose to cut to that wide shot there?
Yeah.
We already saw the action. We already saw the moment, and it's narrated by De Niro, and he's like, I was just trying to figure out why the guy was talking to me the way he was or being mean to me, but at that time, Nicky was, stabbing him, and then it, like, he, puts him out, and he's like, oh, you hear that? He's crying like a little girl, and then, and then it cuts wide, and they're just there at the bar, and it just kind of, to me, it showed, like, here are these crooks in the middle of this bar all by themselves, and... they're this dark, seedy underworld, and he's got this one singular light on this group where this, like, crime just happened.
Sure.
And it was just like, well, what are we conveying here? Like, why are we showing this wide shot? I think it's a great wide shot because the scene starts in close-up, and it ends in a wide shot, and it kind of, to me, just demonstrates that you don't always have to use a wide shot as an establishing shot.
Right. And that's kind of what I was getting at.
Because I think, like, the stereotypical film school narrative way of opening that scene would be, well, you have to take that last shot and put it at the beginning. That's your establishing shot. It's like,
right.
No, you don't. Your establishing, in my opinion, your establishing shot doesn't necessarily need to be a wide shot.
Right.
I think there are ways to establish a scene or establish where we are in the world in different creative ways. And I think if you can find very different and creative ways to do so, that's a really great way to do it.
Yeah. And if you can find interesting ways to use a wide shot.
I think, to me, what's interesting is, we talked about this a little bit in the close-up piece, but I think I'm more inclined to wide shots, which is weird. I think I always see things in wide shots. I don't mean to see things in wide shots all the time, but I think I have a better time, or visually in my mind, I have a better way of seeing the whole scene versus that specific moment in the scene. Yeah. And so, we brought it up, we were on set and we're shooting this product, and most of the stuff we shot were medium to wide shots.
Yep.
And we had some close-ups, but not the explicit product close-up. We didn't,
right.
the gratuitous product close-up, as you call it.
So we got that.
So we got that, and that completed the piece very well.
Yes.
That was an unplanned shot. That shouldn't have necessarily been unplanned. That should have been us saying, oh, we definitely need that.
Yep.
We should have seen that when we're boarding out the project, when we're scoping it out. But I think for me, a lot of times I see things more in a wide shot. I a lot of times in my mind, I picture almost a painting.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm standing in a museum and I'm looking at this scene, and this is everything in the scene. And then later I want to push the camera in and get detailed close-ups of all of that.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the filmmakers who can use wide shots or who use wide shots really well. I think Joker had some really great wide shots.
I would agree.
Mostly through establishing shots.
Yes, but it had extremely well done establishing shots.
I think the interesting thing about and that's where you got to be careful about trying to put the two in the same bucket. I keep going back to this.
Yeah.
Because I think that's
but I think it's an important point to
it's a
make.
misconception.
Sure,
A wide shot is not an establishing shot, and an establishing shot is not necessarily a wide shot.
Right.
It can be, but it's not necessarily. A wide shot is more the definition of we're seeing at least head to toe on the subject, and it's usually featuring one or more subjects in frame.
Sure.
And how you go about framing a wide shot, there's so many ways. I think one of the things I love seeing a lot, and I think we see this more and more in modern filmmaking, is foreground usage in the wide shot.
Yeah.
I think especially from a corporate realm, people love seeing that.
Yeah.
I think it makes your scene feel bigger than it is.
Yeah, totally.
Put something in the foreground of your wide shot and frame it in a way that's interesting and helps build to the story. Or I mean, sometimes it doesn't even need to build to the story, and people just like seeing that parallax object in the foreground.
Yeah.
It's kind of voyeuristic,
And I
peering
thought
through the bushes.
I thought like westerns really did it well. I mean, a lot of the times I feel like westerns.
I mean, Leone is just like.
Yes.
I mean, if we're looking at, are you talking like spaghetti westerns? What are we talking westerns? Like.
Yeah, I guess spaghetti westerns, but like
Yeah.
they utilize wide shots so well, and especially having foreground elements, because I think a lot of the times it's used to intro a character or show that there's someone up behind you,
Right.
or that hey, they lived through the gunshot, or
Right.
there's.
Well, I think like Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is iconic of wide shots.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a
you
great.
have the 3-man standoff at the
Yeah,
end,
right.
And it's this gigantic wide shot.
It's huge wide shot, and it's just focusing on the men there.
Right.
The square off, everything else is dead around them, and it's like you're all gonna be dead at the end of this,
Or
or
you think
something,
of-
right?
yeah.
Or like when Tuco is dragging Blondie through the desert, a lot of wide shots in
Right.
that sequence just to show that like Blondie's in big trouble.
Well, and you can use a
You
lot
know.
of. I think a lot of like man versus nature stuff. Obviously, you're gonna turn to wide shots because
Yeah.
you want to show nature.
And I think that's where you have to get when you're planning your shots, regardless if it's a close up, medium, wide, extreme close up, establish whatever. You got to think about why am I showing that, and how is my character, how is my protagonist integrated into that, and why?
Yeah.
So that's where I don't always agree that an establishing shot has to be a wide shot.
Right.
Because it's all about how are we establishing the scene of which our protagonist is in, or maybe they're not in that scene, but whatever. I think wide shots allow, like you said, it allows you to communicate the vastness. I also think it brings that entertainment level
Yeah.
to the film.
Right.
Visually, I think subconsciously when someone's watching it, they don't know, it's subliminal,
Yeah.
where they see the vastness of the world,
Yeah.
and that allows them to believe the story further.
Well, you think about like Ben-Hur.
Right.
Like that was
Exactly,
all
yeah.
used to, and Lawrence of Arabia.
Lawrence of
like,
Arabia, it was
used to just
2.55
show the
to 1, like,
grandness.
super scope.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
the huge vastness, grandiose
Right.
scale of this world,
Right.
and it's like, oh yeah, that's dope.
Well, and now you're talking about scaling, framing and scaling and
Right.
perspective, and like so Jurassic Park, like making the intentional choice to shoot it 16:9
Yeah.
versus shooting at CinemaScope 2.35 to 1. It was an intentional decision by Spielberg to show the height of the
Right.
frame. We didn't want to see the width. We didn't want to see the landscapes.
Right.
We wanted to see the land of giants. Things are
Right.
tall. And so like that's kind of an interesting thought of like in your wide shot, what are you visually showing?
Yeah.
From top to bottom, left to right, and how does that affect your character's arc? Lord of the Rings obviously does a great job of this.
Yeah.
Mordor is mostly presented to us in wide shots,
Mhm.
and we get into close-ups when we're with the characters. But when the pirates are coming off the coast, or I forgot the people's names who ride the horses or the elephants, but
Oh yeah.
the invaders or
Right.
whatever. It's like wide shots because
Yep.
these are big moments.
You gotta show a
wide
lot.
shots of the battles.
Show a huge army. Show a huge castle.
Right.
Right. So.
And so hugeness, and you got to think too: is your film more intimate or is it bigger than life? And
yeah, because I think in very intimate movies you can utilize a wide shot very interestingly also. Like what I said, to communicate loneliness or just complete isolation or whatever, stuff like that. So
obviously we're just scratching the surface with wide shots.
Yeah, there's a lot more we could talk about.
Absolutely,
a ton more.
And wide shots are of vital importance to your film and visual storytelling. And I think one word of advice I have for any filmmaker is when you're going through your film and pre-visualization stage and you're planning, look at how many wide shots you have and determine if the balance feels right. If the balance feels off, if you have too many wide shots, start looking at why it feels like you have too many wide shots. If you don't have enough, it feels like you don't have enough, look at that, analyze that, and say, well, where should I have more? And particularly think, how is that helping tell your story visually?
Right.
Because a wide shot is a very dramatic choice. It's a very intentional choice, and it should be approached as a very intentional choice. And I think too often I see films where wide shots are thrown in willy-nilly. And
just because
someone's like, I need a wide shot.
Sure.
I think you need to think about why you need that wide shot and how do you go about that wide shot, the importance of that wide shot. And obviously we just, like I said, scrape the surface here, and this warrants much more conversation. I think we save those for later real talks.
Yeah, right.
So stay tuned. If you want to see us continue this conversation about wide shots, make sure you subscribe so when you see our establishing shot piece come up or whatever else, you can watch it. But yeah, if you have any insight or any input, please leave a comment down below. Let us know what your thoughts are. And as always, like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.
See ya.